Hello, my name is Kat, and I have to read 5 more books in the next 15 days if I want to complete my reading challenge for this year. Now that's a relatively fast reading pace, but it's not outrageous. Like, that's definitely doable. I did a similar thing last year. Like, I think I had to read 8 books in 11 days or something like that, and I did it. It's definitely a challenge, but it's one that I'm willing and ready to accept. So let's go. Because I am a mood reader, I can't bring myself to decide on a strict 5-book TBR. So what I've done is I've chosen 8 books, and of these 8, I'm gonna try to read 5 before the end of the year. So let's talk about these books. So first up, I have here my current read, which is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by BRIGID KEMMERER. This is the BOOKSPLOSION Book of the Month pick for December. We're working with Bloomsbury for this one, and the live show is on Friday, so I will be finishing this in the next couple days here. This is the first book in a series. It's a fantastical take on Beauty and the Beast. In this book, we follow a cursed prince in a fantastical world and a modern girl who gets pulled into this fantastical world. I love Beauty and the Beast retellings, and I really especially love that trope where a modern protagonist finds themselves in a fantastical world. It's told in a dual point of view, and I am really enjoying both characters and their perspectives. So yeah, very excited to finish this and discuss it in the BOOKSPLOSION live show on Friday. The final BOOKSPLOSION live show of the year is always a great time because we reflect on everything we read and we rank the books and give them like superlative awards. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time. All of the relevant BOOKSPLOSION details are down in the description if you want to check that out and join in. Next up is a book that I might be reading before the end of the year, and that is Reverie by RYAN La Sala. Now this is the BOOKSPLOSION Book of the Month pick for January. We're working with Source Books on this one, and I don't need to read it in December because it's the January book of the month, but I really want to read this like immediately. This is a debut novel. It just came out at the beginning of December, and I've heard it pitched as The Magicians meets Inception, and also it's super gay. I adore books that play around with dreams and reality and do kind of cool, speculative, genre-bending things. So this sounds right up my alley. And if I don't happen to get to it in the next 2 weeks, it will definitely be one of my first reads of the new year. But yeah, again, all of those BOOKSPLOSION details are down in the description if you're interested in joining us for this read along. Next up is the book that I most want to read, but also the book that is the biggest and therefore not the best strategically for, you know, this crunch time of read 5 books in 15 days. Like, strategically, it'd be better to read 2 books that are like 300 pages apiece rather than 1 book that is 600 pages, but I am a mood reader and I am in the mood to read this 600-page book. The Toll by Neal Shusterman. I just read Scythe and Thunderhead last month and I loved them, so I really, really, really want to read the finale to this trilogy, especially because I've heard good things. Like, Christine keeps talking about how this is a perfect trilogy, so I need to read the 3rd book in the trilogy. But it's 600 pages. It's a big one. So I might choose desire over strategy, but we'll see. Next up, I have one of the most talked about, hyped books of 2019, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is Leigh Bardugo's adult debut novel. It's the first in a contemporary fantasy series. This is about a young woman named Alex who is attending Yale, and she finds herself drawn into this world of Yale's secret societies that may or may not be dabbling in some shady occult practices. I am very intrigued by this book, and I'm very interested to see how I'm gonna feel about it, because I've heard some amazing things about it, and I've seen some reviews from people who did not like it. I personally have loved Leigh Bardugo's YA books, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy this, but again, there's a question mark because there's so many mixed opinions about this book, and I am so intrigued to read it myself and see where I fall. Next up is another adult novel that just has a ton of hype and buzz surrounding it, and that is The Starless C by Erin Morgenstern. Now this one I've heard mostly good things about, especially from some friends whose taste really aligns with mine. Like, this is one of their favorite books of the year, which bodes very well for me liking it. I loved Erin Morgenstern's debut novel, The Night Circus. I think her writing style is so beautiful and atmospheric. And this book is a story about stories, which is something I'm always drawn to. Like, we're following a character named Zachary who discovers this old book, and as he's reading through it, he comes across a story about him from his childhood that was somehow written before he was even born. And from that point, he goes on to discover this labyrinth full of stories and magic and mystery, and it just sounds great. This sounds like just my kind of thing. This is another 500-page book. Like, my TBR choices aren't the most strategic, but they are the ones that, as a mood reader, I am most in the mood for. So, yeah. Can't wait to get to this. Next up is another new release that is almost 500 pages. Look, I never claimed to be good at making decisions, but I have here Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the sequel to Skyward, the second book in what is going to be a 4-book series. I love Brandon Sanderson's books. I think he's especially great at plotting and world building. The first book, Skyward, was one of my favorite books of last year. Like, I'm talking top 3. Was it last year? God, 2019 has been so long. But yeah, I loved book 1, and book 2 just came out at the end of November, so I want to read this. This is one of the more maybe books in this TBR video, because like, it is such a new release that I don't feel a ton of pressure to read it immediately. Also, it's book 2 in a 4-book series, so waiting might not be the worst thing in the world, but I'm impatient, and because Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors, I really trust him as a writer, I know that this is going to be something I'm going to enjoy. So it feels like a safe pick if I'm looking for something fun and awesome and another contender for a favorite of the year. Next up, I finally have a book that is a strategic choice for this reading challenge, and that is In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. This is a novella. It's short. It's just 200 pages. Love that for me. This is the 4th installment in the Wayward Children series, which is a series of novellas that I adore. This series just does so many interesting things with the concept of portal fantasy, and I love portal fantasy. I loved the first 3 installments in the series, and this came out in January, so it's just been chilling on my shelf for a year. And now the 5th installment, the 5th novella in this series is coming out next month. So now feels like the best possible time to read this. I've been putting it off long enough. It's short, which is good for my current reading situation, and the next book comes out in a month. So yeah, good timing. Finally coming through with that strategy. And finally, I have an advanced copy of a highly anticipated book that is coming out very soon, like in January, so y'all don't have to wait too long to get your hands on this as well. I'm talking about Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. Now, I love Adam Silvera's books. Like, the way he writes characters and relationships that are just complex and, oh, they get me. And while some of his other books have had some light speculative elements, this book isn't light on the speculative part. This is the first in a new fantasy series. It's contemporary fantasy, urban fantasy. It's about two brothers who get pulled into this magical battle playing out in the streets of New York. And I am so excited to read this. I can't wait to see how Adam is gonna make me cry this time around. All right, there you have it. Those are the 8 books, of which I am gonna try to read 5 in the next 15 days. This is gonna be fine. Should I vlog it? I might vlog it. We'll see. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this video today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful night and a wonderful final 2 weeks of the year. And I will have another video up soon, before the end of the year. So I will see you then. Bye!